Shawn, Turbo Shawn McDowell.
Jeff Grubb.
I'm playing Mario 64.
Oh, for the first time? You've never done this before?
I played it once or twice.
Oh, okay.
Do you know why I'm playing Mario 64?
Oh, well, it's always a good day to play Mario 64.
That's actually the real reason. I'll play it for any reason whatsoever, including just breathing. But I'm playing it in this instance because we do have the Analogue 3D. This is the one. I bought this one with my own money, and I gotta say, it is living up to and maybe beyond my expectations. I think they did a good job of not overhyping it and talking about some of its secret features. I'm gonna lead with the sort of headline thesis statement, kind of the big takeaway that I've not seen in a lot of the early reviews. I've seen some of this recently in the last couple of days. People are starting to realize it. This is a mid-gen refresh for the Nintendo 64. It is an N64 Pro. The generation's still alive. It really is in many ways the best way to play Nintendo 64 games. There's a bunch of reasons for that. There's a lot of caveats. Convenience is always going to come into it, Shawn. But you're someone who appreciates the N64. How do you go to play it these days? Are you playing on original hardware? Are you going to the NSO emulator? What do you do?
You see, that's the funny thing, Jeff, and it's why this is maybe a great time for this product. There's not a lot of great ways to play N64 games right now.
Surprisingly, yeah. So the big issue emulation has is there's a bunch of weird functionality in the N64 that emulators are only kind of just now maybe getting better at, and even then it's inconsistent. There's a bunch of things that make it actually a little bit challenging to go back to.
Yeah,
even though it was one of those systems that was surprisingly easy to emulate early on, that was a little bit misleading.
Yeah, just getting all the little things right has been difficult. So I still honestly fire up the Virtual Console on my Wii a lot of the time when I want to play N64 games. Because NSO isn't quite there in terms of selection and everything. So a product like this is really cool because it does faithfully recreate that experience, right? Is that what you found? That's what I found when I tried at Dan's during Extra Life this year.
Yeah, so it's a combination of things. Faithful and improved.
Okay.
So let's start with this. We're looking at Mario 64. This is the clean look, and this is the mode that if you or I, Shawn, were to stream some stuff, we would likely choose this mode just because it's the safest for the variety of devices that people are going to be consuming this content on.
Right.
If I'm playing for my own personal enjoyment on my home TV, well, we have some options. If I hit Z and start on any N64 controller, I'm using their 8-bit DOE 64 controller, which is excellent.
It's very good.
Yes, you hold Z and start, and then you get this. Let me go over to the menu so everyone can see it. There you go. It's in 16:9. We're going to do this in 4:3 just because I think it's fun, even though I think it's going to cause headaches for Shawn. You get there's some options here. There's hardware. We'll talk about that in a second. But display mode. You get the scan lines, which is, basic, but welcome. There's CRT, PVM, and BVM, broadcast video monitor, I think, professional video monitor.
Yes.
And a cathode ray tube.
Yes.
And you could set each of these things by their profile here and choose what you want. Let's go with CRT, which is what I think the look most people will be most familiar with.
That's the one that I liked using when I was trying it out. I think it's shockingly faithful to what I see on my CRT that I have in the background of my video here that people sometimes see. It looks how you remember CRTs looking.
So there's a bunch of just visual display options here that will basically help you dial it in to make it look the most like it's on a TV. And you know what? Let's actually just go back here real quick and just show what it looks like. And we have a zoomed in mode so people can really check that out. Let me get Mario in there. There you go. There's our boy Mario. Yeah, it's going to move around him a little bit. And you can kind of see that it's got the sub-pixels kind of down.
Yes.
It was a little bit different now how it worked on the cathode ray tubes. But that's effectively kind of what it looked like, and it's doing an excellent job. And
right.
you can adjust this on the fly by doing that start and select, and then let me go back into this.
While you have this pulled up, people can see that the reason you need 4K for this to really shine is because it actually simulates the individual like RGB of every single pixel. Turns out if you want to recreate that on modern display, you need a ton of resolution to work with. And I have heard from people that they did do a good job of making it look good on lower resolution displays as well. Like apparently there's a separate 1080p version of the CRT shader,
and it detects that automatically.
That's awesome. So even if you just want, if you like everything else that we had to say throughout this video, but you don't have like, you know, a shiny new 4K OLED, you can still get a really good experience. I think that's cool.
Yeah, this is still going to make it a very convenient way if you are someone who has a lot of N64 cartridges or you like original hardware for whatever reason, but you are on a 1080p display. That's right. So there's some things here that, you know, you can mess around with, horizontal and vertical beam convergence. You know, the CRT was literally shooting beams at a screen, and the various colors would sometimes converge in different ways. They're just trying to mimic the feel of an actual television, and you could turn these off and it will have a different effect. I like leaving them on consumer. I think it has the right. Yes, it accomplishes what it's going for to make it feel warm and familiar, like it's on a TV set.
Yeah. And then I think, is it hardware where we can mess with some of the other visual options?
Yes, let's do that real quick after. So edge hardness is just like, again, this is going to soften up the edges of some of these things a little bit, especially for the filters. Integer plus, this is the way to fill up the full screen with, I think one of the lines, either horizontal or vertical, is still going to be integer scaled, and then they'll interpolate the other one. This is the mode I go with most often because it does fill up the whole screen without doing too much weird shimmering because it's not integer scaled. But you can do integer scale if you want. There's just the normal fill, although that, I don't know, something weird.
Oh, is integer fill, or sorry, integer plus, is that overscan? Does it go like beyond the border, like a little bit is cut off, but it's integer? Because usually integer is either underscale or overscale. Either it needs to, like, you know, integer scale means that it just multiplies it by like by 4, by 5, whatever. And sometimes that, because of the resolution of the original system, you end up with black borders around the screen. I assume integer plus would just fill up and maybe even cut off some of the original image so that you can have a nice picture with minimal borders. Yeah, there you go.
So let's look right there. So in the bottom left, you could see the lake in integer scale. We'll go to integer plus. Looks like it's going to overscan vertically a little bit, and it gets cut off. So it's like such a tiny amount. It's not bothering me, but it's something worth keeping in mind for sure. Okay, very good. So let's go to hardware. This is where you can really do some really cool stuff. And you might have noticed, let's go back to the clean look real quick. So we started in this clean look. This is not how I would recommend playing it. Not that I think you can get a bad image here. When you're playing anything with the Analog 3D,
but this is Super Mario 64 on the PS1 is basically what this looks like.
It's PS1, and it's like forgoing many of the visual techniques that actually made the N64 good.
Right.
While of course you want to get rid of the blur. Everyone wants to get rid of the blur. I get that. Not everything that was happening on the N64 that was creating that blur or contributed to it was bad. This gets rid of basically everything if you do it in this mode. Now, if we go to hardware, and again, let's go back to this other screen here so we could see the full UI. Let's go to hardware. Let's just turn off disable texture filtering, which is going to be one of the main things that gives it that PlayStation-like effect. Also, disable anti-aliasing, turn that off. Anti-aliasing is good on the N64. I know everyone has this idea that it was bad on the N64.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, turn off the de-blur too, so we can see like this will be like how N64 originally looked, and then we can show people about the anti-aliasing thing. Yeah.
Actually, you know what? We can go full on. Actually, in a moment, we'd have to close the cartridge. We can go force original hardware here in a moment to see what it like really looked like. But yes, so this, again, it's still clean mode, so we're not getting any of the CRT filters. But here is all of the filtering turned on, the full blur effects.
This is like if you hooked up your N64 to a retro tank or something. This is like how it would look, how you might remember N64 games looking, a little blurry.
Yes, and I think this is a fantastic way to play this game. Actually, again, especially if you're streaming, this is very clean. But there is maybe a little bit too much blur for some people's taste. You definitely want to play with that de-blur, and we'll just do this real quick without fixing the UI. But let's do that. There we go.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
just a
the
little
good
bit
stuff.
sharper.
Yeah.
Yes, and now it looks surprisingly upscaled, and it's worth mentioning. Like, yeah, we're rendering sort of the UI and outputting in 4K, but they're not really upscaling the game to 4K.
No.
Like that's not happening on the Analogue 3D.
Yeah, I think just having the anti-aliasing turned on is good because it is true anti-aliasing. Like, you know, in the hardware, sort of like anti-aliasing on a PC game is what people might closely associate with that with nowadays. It does just smooth out those hard edges, and you know, this was lower res 3D, so I think it actually does a nice job of cleaning things up a little bit, especially if we do put one of those CRT filters back on. But like, just turning the deblur on removes sort of the Vaseline effect that people associate with N64. But I think, you know, turning the deblur on, leaving the anti-aliasing on, yeah, you can see really when we zoom in there that God, that CRT shader does a really good job. Yeah, it's clean, but it's, you know, a little smoothed out. I think it's a great effect.
All right, go back here. Go back to the clean look for just a general running around. Okay, so let's see here. Actually, bring this up. So maybe one of the there's an obvious like headline awesome feature, but I think an understated feature, something that like, while this has some caveats, there's some issues with some emulation when you are overclocked. We'll talk about that. There is some filtering that is a little bit weird when you're playing a game that uses 480 interlaced. People have been talking about that.
Yes.
Shawn, I haven't run into that too much. I don't think I play too many games that use that display mode, but I bet people do.
The high res mode is a little rare. You know, it's not the most common thing, so it's going to be intermittent. It's not going to be all the time.
So there's reasons to be like, oh man, it's not perfect, but it's still better than most because of this feature. And, you know, maybe some emulators have had this. I'm not familiar with it if they do. 32-bit color. So the thing with the N64 is it rendered in 32-bit color, but then it went through and basically had to downscale everything to 16-bit color. All that means is there's a lot more color options in 32-bit color. And to sort of replicate those colors in the 16-bit mode, they'd have to use a lot of dithering to make things look right. So this actually makes a huge difference in a lot of games. Now, Mario 64, maybe not so much because that game they specifically made to work well with the N64 hardware. There's a lot of games, though, where that just immediately cleans things up. It does a lot more to me than even upscaling a game to 4K, Shawn, where I'm just like, oh, these textures look a lot better now. Maybe we can actually even get up close here and see if it does make a difference in Mario 64. Let's see here.
Yeah, it is going to be game by game, but I have heard that apparently it is like it's not even the difference in how it's rendering the color, but just that removal of the dithering effect, or whichever direction it is actually the thing that's like really affecting the clarity of textures, which, you know, these blurrier, lower resolution textures from back in the day, that can make a big difference, like you said.
Yeah, even if you're not like noticing them or looking right at them, it probably can wear on the eyes to have these blurry things like blasting at you from a big 4K TV now. You can notice it actually here. So look in the bottom left at the carpet. We have the 32-bit color feature off. You turn it on, you can just see it gets a little bit sharper. And that, like Shawn said, that is turning off the dithering that they were using to sort of scatter the 32-bit information on a 16-bit level to sort of recreate those colors. And now they just got rid of that, and it makes it, I don't know, to me, that's a huge difference. Right. I'm really impressed by that.
Yeah, it's again, whichever direction is working in there, I forget, but it's sort of another removal of a bit of the blur of N64. It's just a little bit sharper while still not looking, you know, artificial.
All right, yeah, so there's a lot of other features, though, worth bringing up. So they just released a new operating system or firmware for it that improves the performance of Perfect Dark and GoldenEye. So let's go check those out.
Okay, interesting.
Quit the cartridge. We'll go over the UI here in a second. Let's get back in here. I got the EverDrive working as well.
That was a big concern. So what did you have to do to get your EverDrive working? Did you do an update to the EverDrive, or how did that happen?
That's worth calling out. So specifically with mine, and I think it's worth most of them, you'll have to go download a new bootloader from Crix, who did the update, and you'll want to get the most recent one. There was 1.09, and now there's a 1.10 that actually unlocks Unleashed mode, which is crucial to getting the most out of this thing. You go download that, put it on the SD card, put it back in your EverDrive, then you need to boot up that cartridge, the EverDrive cartridge, on original hardware first to actually load the bootloader on the cartridge. It worked well for me. I had an N64, of course, so that was fine. There are some, I think, that's not required, or you can go get a summer cart, which has better DD support. So there are other options, but I had this one and I really wanted to just get it working, and it was pretty simple to do. All right, let's go to Perfect Dark. And this is a game that, like, you know, a lot of late rare games, like 99, 2000, 2001 rare games for the N64, they ran pretty poorly.
Oh yeah, single digits at time in terms of frame rate.
So this is an N64 Pro, and it has a bunch of different options for overclocking. Basically enhanced GPU, enhanced CPU. This was a CPU-bound game, so that was the thing that just happened with a recent update to the Analogue 3D specifically, that they now have basically enabled it to unlock the CPU as well, and that enables this game to now run super smooth. Let me go back to the full 4x3. There you go. This intro's never looked this smooth on an N64 hardware, especially one that is doing such a good job at like maintaining all the original features of the N64, like trilinear filtering and things like that.
Right. So do you have the overclock on right now?
Yes. So this is Unleashed mode. That is the top of the line. You're getting as much juice as it can give it, and that's. You want to use that in a lot of these games. There are some caveats. We'll get to those in a second. But it really does make a huge difference to performance. It is surprisingly good.
Right. And there are different levels to the overclocking you do for compatibility reasons, because apparently some levels of the overclock will break some games. So you can like tone it down a little bit, less of a performance boost, but you know, still improved, right?
Yes, and it's just that, you know, I think this game looks really good on here now. A game that, like, I enjoyed at the time, but boy, it's been hard to go back to on original hardware.
Yeah, real quick, if you look at the lights, if you go back and look at the lights, Perfect Dark is a good example of the...
these ones right here?
No, the like shining lights in the room to the left. This room.
There's some in this room right here.
Yeah, that works too. So if you look at the lights, you can actually see... Yeah, so this is the dithered look that
you can see that.
We have 32-bit color enabled right now, right?
We do.
Okay, so yeah, that will make the lights look dithered. Jeff, if you could actually pull the menu back up and switch it back to 16 real quick.
Let's do that. All right, so that's in display mode, right?
Hardware.
No, it's hardware.
Yes.
All right.
So you can see...
Oh, yeah, you can see
with the
like,
original 16-bit color, again, that being tied to the dithering thing, it looks smooth. It doesn't have that dithered effect anymore. So that's why the two are tied together, and it can kind of feel like a sharpening filter that we're putting on or off. Yeah, sometimes you don't want to see all the dithered patterns that can happen when you change that mode. So again, these are the kind of settings that are nice for nerds like us to like mess with and tweak in the hardware, so that way we can get the exact image we want. It looked like it's pretty easy to pull up that menu and just like change things on the fly, right?
Oh yeah. So most things you can change on the fly. You can't change the Unleashed overclocked mode on the fly. We'll show what that looks like here in a second. But a lot of these specific features, and it seems like they're gonna keep updating this thing. The OS is a little underbaked at the moment. There are features that are grayed out. You can't turn on in any circumstance. So I imagine that stuff's going to improve over time as well. So we'll keep 32-bit off for now and just see what the game looks like. But hey, I think that's just me, right? Look at this guy.
I was going to say, it's Chuck with, you know.
Oh, yeah. It does go up with Chuck as well.
It's our map on N64, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. This is super silky smooth. It's nuts. I really am impressed by this. And it's like, oh, okay. So we're getting, again, all of the original oomph and bells and whistles of an N64, which are difficult to replicate on a lot of other environments. And then we're getting like the boosted effect of running on juiced up hardware. And it kind of like, I come away with it. I come away from it every time, Sean, being like, oh, this, I think it's the best way for me to play N64 games, which was not what I was expecting when it showed up, right? When it showed up, I think I'm like, okay, another way to play N64. I have a Mister. I can do things on there that are pretty similar. I have all my emulators. I have original hardware and a retro tank. And all of those are good in various ways, but I think, blow for blow, this one comes out on top for me so far, Sean.
Yeah, it seems that way to me as well, because normally with analog products, you're kind of paying a premium for something that just looks and feels nice. It feels
Often,
faithful
yes.
to the original, but it's not necessarily the best way to do something. It's just a very clean way to do something, almost like that Apple style of you pay a premium, you get a premium product that feels nice and you can feel good about. But no, this way, you're actually getting the best way to play N64 games on original hardware right now. And it's priced cheaper than a lot of the alternatives. This is cheaper than getting an HDMI mod for your original N64.
Yes, this is much cheaper actually in a lot of ways.
This is a hell of a lot cheaper than getting an N64 and a retro tank, like a retro tank 4K that would do the similar CRT effects and everything like this. It's the price has gone up a little bit as of recording because of world events, but still at that $270 price right now. It seems like almost like there's a good value. I'm not going to say it's a deal necessarily. That's still a lot of money, but there's a good value here if you want to plug in your original carts and make them look as good as possible and just plug in HDMI cable and go.
Yeah, it has a unique value proposition that I think is compelling at the very least. So, all right, so we're back in that hardware menu. There is the overclocked mode here. There's auto, enhanced, enhanced plus, unleashed. Early on, when the EverDrive was just working for me, I could only get enhanced to work. Enhanced plus or unleashed would break the game, but they fixed that. But unleashed, I noticed I was playing Rogue Squadron. I was like, oh man, this looks significantly better. But let's do a pretty good example of just how different this can be. So there is this Force Original Hardware option. You could just click that, and all of the performance will be exactly as it should have been on an original N64. And let's go with the game that I think is one I had fun with at the time. Pretty notorious for running like doo-doo. Let's go to San Francisco Rush. Let's see here. Extreme Racing. All right, so let's just see if we can just do a quick race. Just play. It's like we're getting like maybe low 20s for a frame rate.
It's not great.
It's not great, and it's kind of a little bit difficult to play, but not again, something that I played a ton of as a kid. I was fine, but there is a better way, and so we're gonna have to reboot this here. Let's quick cartridge.
It's just casually crash over there. Yeah, man.
Yep, casually crash. Oh, wait, dang it. Let me go quick cartridge. There we go. Go over here. We'll go to hardware, and now we'll turn that off, and we'll go all the way to Unleashed, which there's probably reasons to use some of these other ones in certain circumstances.
Right. Certain games will require certain ones, depending on how much something will break by how much of the N64 you're overclocking. That's what the different levels do. They overclock different parts of the N64 that this chip, if people still don't know, this is FPGA, field programmable gate array. That's a mouthful.
That's right. Yep.
In layman's terms, it's a computer chip that you can program to simulate other computer chips. And so, what that hardware overclocking feature is doing is that all the different chips that this thing simulates, it overclocks the various things like the RAM, the CPU, the GPU, all that.
And that could cause some games to get a little out of sync, or in some cases, again, we'll show it off, be completely unplayable, and maybe enhanced would fix that or something like that. But for now, let's see. There are some other issues with games getting a little out of sync because this outputs at 60 frames per second. The N64 did slightly less than 60 frames per second, but
59.97, I think.
Yeah, right. That's the one that comes to mind as well. I think that is not going to be something most people are going to notice or matter, even for purists in most situations. Okay, let's do one race now that we are unleashed. Just play. And it's going to lock in at 30 frames per second. And that it makes it just a much better experience. Let me fade in here as well. There we go.
Just makes it much more stable and less choppy.
Yes. Yeah, and you'll still get in some circumstances where a game is trying to run at 60 frames per second, you'll still get some dips, but it'll be much more consistent. kind of across the board. It seems like they had quite a bit of overhead with this FPGA chip to do these things, and their engineers over there who are top tier kind of really pulled out all the stops.
Yeah, I mean, the Analogue 3D is an impressive piece of kit here because a lot of people thought this couldn't be done. For years, we said there will never be an FPGA N64. We will never have a N64 core for the Mister, the DIY FPGA solution. And it's impressive that we are here and we finally have a FPGA replacing the original hardware. That's what's important. As consoles break down over time, we need other solutions to play these games, and that's what FPGA has been really good at. Is you can buy an N64 again, and that's awesome that you can just get that hardware again. That is kind of in, like you've been saying, the sort of the N64 Pro form factor. Is just an enhanced version.
Banjo-Tooie is another game that, that's a late rare game for the N64 that ran real rough. 18, 19 frames per second, like sub 20. Yeah. Unleashed kind of makes it run. I hesitate to say that this one's locked 30, but it's much more stable and often much closer to 30 most of the time. We'll just look at this real quick, but this is much smoother than you would get on original hardware. Shawn, I'm kind of a purist, but I'm also if I'm not a purist, Shawn, I'm I want to do what's good enough. Give me something that's good enough if it's very convenient. When I'm going to this thing, I'm what am I going here for? It probably is for a mostly pure experience. But now I'm what? So why am I so obsessed with all of this overclocking and unleashed mode? And it's because it does still feel like an N64 at its heart, but just the way these games could have ran had they just made an N64 2 right away, right?
Right. And yeah, this kind of thing really appeals to me because that's actually what I prefer. I do like running on original hardware as much as possible, but I also like just having the best experience possible while being faithful. Right. And that's something that, emulation does not give you that. N64 emulation in particular, like you mentioned, is still kind of tricky. And so having these games look as intended, but running as good as they can, I think that's really appealing.
All right, so we'll go. It's what's it called? Knife Jack, Knife Jaw. Let's see. Okay, Knife Edge Nose Gunner from Kemco, everyone's favorite. This also apparently ran at an uncapped frame rate, Shawn. Let's see. But
sometimes
that looks like.
Developers would work with that and expect the game to run at low frame rate.
Right, they built the whole game around that, and instead we get this unplayable mess. This is crazy. Those things are just flying. I got one. All right, yeah. So this would clearly be unplayable, right? I'm oh, this is kind of fun, but no, they're going by so fast. You don't even have the time to react.
This is also the difference between console and PC, for example. They knew every single N64 would run this game at 20 FPS or whatever, and so they could tie the physics to that. But they never expected that Analogue would come along and have an overclocked N64 and just run everything way too fast.
All right, so we've shown some games running more stable. Let's see a game that actually runs at 60 frames per second in a way that you haven't seen before on the N64. Okay. Guardian Legends. I'm sorry, Gauntlet Legends.
Gauntlet. Yeah.
There we go. This is especially impressive because I always liked this version of the game quite a bit. Played it a lot. It was a frequent rental for me and my brother and my friends, and we would play through it a lot. Even though it was kind of rough on the N64 in some ways, but the gameplay, the mechanics were all there. It was a really good time. The game always felt like it had a strong connection to the N64. I think you could even bring your memory pack to the arcade version.
I love when they did that. Yeah, NFL Blitz,
Blitz,
the machine that I play at Galloping Ghost every time. It still still has that attached on the side. You can put your little N64 memory card in there and transfer teams or whatever you do. I've never done it before, but man, they were obsessed with that back in the day. And Midway was kind of just on a roll during this period,
Yes, they had some good stuff on the N64 in the arcade. All right, so I think we're still on Unleashed, and already it just looks so much smoother. It's pretty wild how 60 frames per second can make a huge difference in this game.
Yeah, I know there's some some fan-made games, some ROM hacks, some tweaks of existing games. There's like a Perfect Dark enhanced performance patch, which changes the visuals slightly but dramatically increases the frame rate. Those things all get better by using the overclocking on this, which is cool that you can have, some homebrew games and stuff running at close to 60 FPS on original, approximating original hardware.
Right, and a lot of those things, like, there's a bunch of different tricks that they'll use. Some will be like, hey, we actually cleaned up the code, like that Mario 64 project of like, hey, that was such an early N64 game. Even Nintendo didn't really know what they were working with, so it's got some issues in the code that make the game underperform, so I'm going to fix that up. Some of those fan mods will just do some other tricks to kind of speed the game up itself on the software side of things and make it, try to smooth it out. So combining that stuff with the improved actual performance of the hardware, you get a lot of benefits from using the Analogue 3D. Ooh. There we go. That's right, Obelisk. Man, I could just play God and Legends. Okay, let's see here. I think there is maybe a little bit more we could show off in terms of another caveat, and then we'll take a look at the UI itself.
Sure.
Blast Core is one where it's like, I think things kind of get a little bit funky with the syncing.
Okay.
Let me see. That's what someone was telling me. Anyhow, let's take a look and see if we can notice something. So again, we're unleashed. So I think it's going to go into like the gameplay demos, right? That's how this game works. I think one of those, it's like, oh, this in the background is like the game performing some routine, and now it's going to go too fast, and the game will be like, wait, the gameplay should still be happening behind this, and nothing happens. I think is how this will actually break down.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
I've never actually played Blast Core.
It's a weird one, and once you get the hang of it, it's very rewarding. It just has a really strong sense of momentum and action. Okay, no, here's the gameplay demos. So it's just all about destruction, and it's really solid. This is one that's like great on like the rare replay. You can play this any number of ways, and it's always great.
Sure.
Yeah. Shawn, while this plays out, so if the price got raised while we were doing this, is that really what happened?
It went up $20. Yes, it was going to be $250 for the Analogue 3D, and they were like, hey, we need to raise prices because reasons. We're raising it to $270, which is still not a terrible price. This is, it's a boutique product. Even putting together, your own Mister as an alternative is still going to be, kind of up there in price. So especially for a device that's plug and play, you run your original cartridges, I still don't think that's in the territory of too much,
Yes, I agree. Especially, like the comparisons that we were doing to all the different ways of trying to get the most out of an N64 or your N64 collection. This is still well within that price range of things that is like, oh, this might be... It's going to save me money compared to a lot of other things you might consider.
Right. Maybe I think Beetle Adventure Racing is another one we could do.
Oh, that's a good one.
Here.
Yeah.
I think that one might have the desync issue you talked about.
Yes, I think you're right. I heard that as well. There was like a list of things that people are keeping track of, and I saw Beetle Adventure Racing.
Yeah. Because, back in the day, they didn't really have pre-rendered video to work with as much for demo modes, especially on cartridge-based systems where you couldn't store a lot of that stuff. So they would just script out all of the stuff happening in the intro, and they would script out assuming, again, that the N64 was going to run in a certain way. And so it's interesting when that stuff desyncs.
It's this was one that's like, I think even had a little bit of inconsistency on original hardware, but it was just a tiny amount. It's not supposed to do that.
Action.
It's supposed to like stop in the midair, I think. I think it's just gonna kind of keep running off and like going off the wall and stuff.
Just running into the wall. Adventure.
That's fantastic. Oh my god, I didn't realize it did the big words over it. Okay.
It's very good. It's very funny.
Yeah, right. It's just skidding against the wall and yeah, this is right. A little bit of weirdness. The thing is, when this thing does have weirdness, it is mostly in situations like this, where it's the intro movies, it's something that is very scripted. It is not when you're in control of the game. When you're in control of the game, other than that, the knife jack helicopter shoot 'em up game, you're mostly going to just have an overall better experience or a much better experience.
Yeah.
So,
and all this stuff is optional. So if there's compatibility issues
Yeah.
or if you just don't want it, you can customize it as much or as low as you want. You can have it looking like the N64, running like the N64. You can have it looking and running like an emulator. You can have cars stopping like this. It's nice that you can play around with this. Again, it's not a cheap product, but I almost get the sense of like it being a toy, like you can mess around and putz around with these things that you remember fondly. I think that makes it, at least for me, it makes it such a more appealing product than most of Analogue's stuff. I really haven't felt the need to pick up any other stuff because I have other ways to play all the different systems that they've done before. This is the first one where I'm like, all right, they're kind of firing on all cylinders here. Even if it seems like they may have been sprinting to the finish line here, they had the delay. Yes. There's stuff in the menu that still isn't available yet, and they're going to update the operating system to support. But even what's already there is excellent. There's some shortcomings. I think you mentioned it briefly. The interlaced mode looks funky because they don't have high quality de-interlacing, unfortunately. But that's also the kind of thing that, you have to work around that on original hardware too. So I can only blame them so much for it,
Yeah. Again, it's like it may not win in like the matrix of various ways to play N64 at various costs and various setup and various conveniences. It's not going to like get the check mark in every single one of those boxes. It's going to get them in the vast majority of them, though. And the ones that really matter, I think it's going to win. And those being, the experience of playing the games and in a lot of ways, the cost. And it's like, those two make it very compelling, like I said earlier. Yeah. So
broadly speaking, it's kind of just the best way to play N64 games if you want to stick in your original cartridges, right?
Yes, exactly. So this is the interface. You might have seen other videos where like there was like a cartridge art here. That was something that was included as a kind of a bonus by Analogue when they were sending out review units. This is how it will come naturally if you just sort of buy it. But you can go online and basically upload a library of cartridge art for yourself. And people are making those, so you can do that. It's not something I'm super precious about, mostly because I am going to be using the EverDrive, which is this unknown cartridge here. You could, you also have some just basic settings for the system here for the display, 4K, the basically LLM, which is like automatically turning on gaming mode.
Auto low latency mode.
Yes, there it is. Thank you. HDR is off here just because we're capturing, but HDR is pretty handy, especially when you're using those CRT filters. Yeah,
exactly. The scan lines will like darken the image a little bit. CRT can mitigate that somewhat.
Yeah, it doesn't do it as much as the RetroTink. The RetroTink's a little bit better at sort of compensating for the darkness, but that's something I'm like, hopefully we can get the option to maybe control how many nits this thing is outputting or something like that, but we'll have to wait and see. And then sync mode, Sean, I don't know what that is. Not sure exactly what that is.
I don't think I know either.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's not one that I've even been able to interact with.
I like the word zero delay, though. That sounds good.
Yeah, that seems better. Yeah, I like that quite a bit. All right, so once we're on this menu again with the cartridges, there is this configure option, and it configures based on cartridge, so it's cartridge by cartridge. One of the benefits of using the EverDrive actually is there is no sort of global setting to be like, hey, this is the profile I want to use when I'm playing most games. So you kind of have to set each thing each time for each cartridge. This kind of solves that a little bit by accident by being like, oh, this is just one cartridge, and then you go in there and you choose your game.
But so I suppose conversely, it would also apply to stuff that maybe you don't want that profile on. So it's a bit of a trade-off.
Yes, right. But for the most part, I do want my profiles to kind of be global. So it's a benefit to me, but you're right. There are people who will prefer to have it game by game. And for them, the EverDrive will be a little bit of a hassle. So anyway, we press the right C button. We get into this mode. And this is what we've been showing you. These are the bulk of the options. Again, you can sort of set each of the modes for display to have their own options here. And these will be saved. So if you set up clean to be, the interpolation algorithm Lankos 2, but you have a bunch of other options here as well. This is the one I usually default to. It doesn't make much of a difference, usually just for the naked eye. But yeah, this stuff will all be saved. Hardware, same thing. And again, this is stuff like virtual expansion pack, stuff you can't obviously mess with when you're playing a game. You could turn this off if you ever wanted to do that. Again, I can't really think of why, but
there's a couple fringe cases where N64 games don't actually operate correctly when an expansion pack is in. Yeah.
Always good to have the option. And then, again, there's this overclocked option that you can only do before you get into the game. But we've showed off most of what's here. The thing is, it's like, let's see,
There's not a ton of options, but there's certainly just enough for nerds like us to geek out for like 45 minutes about this cool new hardware.
Yes, I think that, the thing is, there's not much here where you could sort of mess up. I think that's my takeaway from the way this
there's
is set up
guardrails
right now. Yes, there's guardrails in place. They're not going to give you so many options. You're going to get overwhelmed. It's going to be pretty easy to tell what each thing is doing and how it's changing it, especially if you're adjusting things in a game. So yeah, you're going to be able to get the display that you want. If people are looking for a recommendation for like, hey, I want to get this on my TV at home, I'm not going to be streaming, I would go display mode, CRT, leave these convergences on consumer. Edge hardness is soft. I think that's actually probably preferable. You want to have a little bit of softness on the edges, just kind of blur the image slightly. That's mostly good. Integer plus, unless you're cutting off any of the pixels on the frame of the picture. And then image fit original. That doesn't make too much of a difference. For hardware, I would go deblur on, 32-bit color auto, and then we would leave off disable texture filtering and leave off disable anti-aliasing. These things you can always mess around with, turn them on and off when you're in the game. But if you just want something that is going to look right, those are your options. And then in most cases, Unleashed will get you a much better experience.
Right.
So, yeah. Shawn, any other final thoughts before we get out of here?
I just think it's neat.
Me too. I've really grown to like it more and more every time I use it. So just very impressive. It is probably Analogue's best product so far, in terms of just delivering on what it's promising. If you're not into the N64, well, you're wrong. But also, there's not much I can do for you. But,
no accounting for taste, right?
No accounting for taste. Exactly. All right, Shawn. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Jeff.
Bye, everybody.